Hello everybody, this is Sportitude, your sporting fix for the week. And as I said before, we're talking about football. It's a full football episode today. What we are going to be talking about is all the football leagues, because I think it was a football heavy episode, let's be honest. Isn't that right, Roger?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happened this week, I guess, so we'll go with that.
So, what do you want to start with first?
Well, why don't we start with the most recent news that's happened this week then? We'll start with Tony Pulis, West Brom.
Yes, I think that just broke in about, a couple hours ago? So that Tony Pulis sacked as West Brom manager. What are your immediate thoughts for that?
My immediate thoughts are that I'm extremely worried that Michael O'Neill is going to take over, but I think in terms of actual football, West Brom and Tony Pulis, they both saw it coming because they had a really difficult run of results, and as with any Tony Pulis side, they don't play the football that everyone wants to watch. What I will say though is that if Pulis had kept this job, I can guarantee West Brom wouldn't have been relegated, but they need to have a really good manager in that's going to make sure that they don't get relegated now, because I think that could be a mistake.
What, you think that having Michael O'Neill as West Brom manager could be a mistake?
No, because I don't think he'll go.
Oh, you really? I mean, hasn't Betting been suspended for that one, though?
Betting has been suspended, but Michael O'Neill announced this morning, before Tony Pulis had been sacked, that he was not going to consider the negotiations from Scotland because his mother passed away, unfortunately, in the early hours of the morning, I believe. So thoughts obviously with Michael at this time, but he doesn't want to discuss any contract negotiations or any club negotiations at the minute for the foreseeable future, so it'll be on hold anyway, even though betting is suspended.
So who do you think will become the new West Brom manager? Personally, I don't think there's that many managers out there who are, who I think could suit West Brom. Maybe Sam Allardyce could come into it. That's the only one which comes to mind for me.
That is the only one that came to mind to me as well. He's the only one that I think will guarantee that West Brom stay up. But I'll run you through the favourites if you want.
Yeah, go on, Roger. I mean, that's what you're here for, isn't it?
Michael O'Neill is the favourite, but obviously we discussed him. The second favourite is Derek McInnes, the former West Brom Albion captain.
Oh, beautiful.
But he's had a less than successful spell at Bristol City recently, and he's the current Aberdeen boss, and I think they lost 2-0 at home to Motherwell at the weekend, so things not going completely swimmingly for him at the minute. And then next is Sam Allardyce at 5-1, but it's reported that he doesn't want a relegation scrap. Again, he's not interested in a relegation battle. Then after that, Chris Wilder, Sheffield United boss, Gary Megson, Nigel Pearson, who's currently in the second tier of Belgian football. Would you know it?
Which is absolutely brilliant. I just love how Nigel Pearson has just decided, I'll just take the next job available. It's like, on Football Manager, when you just get sacked and you're like, right, I've just got to go to this club. I feel like that's what's just happened to Nigel Pearson.
Elsewhere, Martin O'Neill, 14-1, Craig Shakespeare, 25-1, and Nuno Espirito Santos, 33-1. So there aren't that many managers. I can't see Santo leaving. I can't see Wilder leaving. I can't see Nigel Pearson taking the West Brom job, I have to say.
So anyway, let's go into actually what some football which actually happened over the weekend. And I'm going to start. I know we let you start, but I think I'm going to take control. Let's talk about the North London derby between Arsenal and Tottenham. I think it was the big game, and surprising result, I would say so. Arsenal 2, Tottenham 0.
Yeah, I thought it was surprising as well. I expected Tottenham to win quite comfortably, but I think quite clearly Harry Kane wasn't fit for the match, and he wasn't firing on all cylinders, and I think that really affected Tottenham. I don't think Eriksen was quite at it as well. I think maybe a little bit of hesitation in his game after the thrashing of the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah, he definitely looked tired. He definitely felt like he could have been one of those players who maybe came on at half-time or something along those lines, not really starting. He did definitely look a lot, he had a lot of wear and tear. And I do agree with you for Harry Kane, but if that is the case, then why start him? I know he's really important, but at the end of the day, you want to get your players really as fully fit as you can. And is, a game like this, eventually now, as we know the result, obviously hindsight's a blessing, but it didn't really matter if Harry Kane wasn't there, because at the end of the day, they didn't score a goal and they conceded 2.
As a manager, I think you take that risk. I think you've got to take that risk. One of the best strikers around in the world at the minute. If he says he wants to play, you play him, I think. And I don't disagree with it, but I think after 60 minutes he had to be subbed off. He wasn't at the races. But What I will say is that is one of the very few Arsenal performances I've seen where they actually played for the shirt. They tracked back, they pressed as a team, and it was just an all-round great performance from the Gunners.
See, I really liked Sanchez's goal. Not because it was a great goal, but it was scrappy. You know, when he took that touch and it was very, very close to Lloris. There's so many times Arsenal have been accused of passing it around the back, and passing it into the box. That was just a cross. No, it was a nice through ball. It's a nice little scrappy goal. He definitely showed his passion and his willingness to play for Arsenal. Also, obviously, there must have been some City scouts there, but let's be honest. Do you think he's going to go or not, Sanchez?
I think if Arsenal have any sense, they'll sell him in January because they've got to cash in on him while they still can.
Yeah, I'd probably have to agree with you there. What other game really stood out for you this weekend in England?
In England, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say Bournemouth against Huddersfield. That really caught my eye, I think, this weekend because I looked at that as a massive battle. Huddersfield haven't conceded that many goals. Bournemouth were really, really low in the table and they really needed a result. And they got one. Callum Wilson with a hat-trick, 4-0. Well, with a man down as well. I think that was great.
The question I was going to ask you about this is Bournemouth, better with 10 men or 11? Because honestly, you wouldn't have thought that they had a man sent off.
Yeah, I know. Well, I think they were going to win however many men they played with today. I think they showed a lot of passion. They played brilliantly. And Huddersfield weren't at the races, it's fair to say. But Bournemouth absolutely needed a result at home to Huddersfield. And they emphatically got one, so...
And it puts now Bournemouth up to 13th. Obviously, it's really early on in the season. Anything can happen. But Bournemouth 13th, I think they'll be happy to be there and thereabouts at the end of the season. So maybe this win could spur on a couple more victories as well. I want to talk about the game yesterday. What a debut for David Moyes, as in... he defies all expectations of what a manager debuting, with a new team should be doing. And that is winning, which David Moyes definitely did not do. He lost 2-0 to Watford. It's embarrassing, really, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I mean, we can't judge West Ham and David Moyes on one performance because away to Watford is an extremely difficult game. It's not one that should be taken lightly, and I think a lot of teams have underestimated Watford this season, and they're still what are they, top 10 at the minute, are they?
I believe Watford are 8th.
Yeah, they're 8th, so they're on 18 points, so you can't underestimate Watford, and I thought they'd actually win that more comfortably than they did. I think David Moyes has got to have time to get used to his new team. It doesn't always work with a manager coming in and winning his first game. You can't expect him to, and I think the next home game they have will be the one that determines how safe Moyes will be in a job at West Ham.
Yeah, but I'm already looking at... I mean, this is obviously just off Twitter, essentially, but there's a lot of angry West Ham fans who were angry at the appointment of David Moyes, and this performance really is not going to spur him on to think, you know what, actually David Moyes is the right man. He's had a week at least, hasn't he, at the job to get training. He's not like he's only just come into this job. He's had a little bit of time to get some preparation. I know it's not his team which he wants, but to be fair, if he's going to bring in Pienaar, or something like that, then is it really the team which you want anyway? But I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit too harsh on him. I just felt at Watford, I think, for a team like West Ham, despite them being in the position which they're at, I feel like they should have at least showed a little bit more heart and desire in that game, to be fair.
I think you're probably right, but again, I think you are being too harsh in the fact that yes, he's had a week there, but it was an international break. He's not had the amount of time that he would have loved to have with the actual players he's going to play. The best players at West Ham were away playing for their country, so I do think that 2 months down the line, if the situation at West Ham is only marginally better or still the same, then I would have to sack David Moyes because in 2 months' time, the players in that team are far better than where they are in the table, and they've got to start picking up some results soon.
So let's go into the team currently occupying 7th place. It's Burnley. Burnley, 7th place, 2-0 victory over Swansea. Great Burnley performance or a poor Swansea side? It's a bit of both with this type of game because I thought Burnley played very well, but Swansea just don't look like a team which is Premier League ready.
I don't think Burnley even played as well. I think Burnley played averagely on Saturday. I think Swansea, if something doesn't change there, they're going to get relegated this season. They were very, very close last season, and only the goals of Fernando Llorente kept them up. And he's not there this season. Boney isn't firing on all cylinders. They've got to sort something, but I think credit has to go to Burnley. But I think If they'd have been playing a mediocre team, they wouldn't have won comfortably. But I think they have another few levels to raise their game to.
Quickly going on to Burnley, Sean Dyche again asked about whether he's going to take over the Everton job. It looks like no approach by Everton has been made. Obviously, we've heard that Marco Silva has been approached, and Watford have basically said no money in anything will let him go. Even though he's probably at the end of the season, he's going to be off there anyway. That's just the way Watford work, isn't it, these days? But do you think Sean Dyche could go to Everton? They're running out of managers to try and get, to be fair.
I don't think Sean Dyche will go to Everton. I don't think Marco Silva will go to Everton because Burnley in 7th, Watford in 8th. Why would they go 10 places down the league to Everton?
Well, because I feel like there's the glass ceiling's higher, isn't it? Than
it is higher, Everton. But at the minute it's glass and there's been stones thrown at it. So I think the ceiling's made very firmly from concrete at Burnley.
Oh, it's a great analogy, that, Roger. Well done. Well, speaking of Sean Dyche, Everton, and all that, 2-2 against Palace. I mean, any incoming manager, whether that be Sean Dyche or anybody else, must be looking at that game and thinking, actually, this team ain't that good. Because Palace are another side very, very poor, I would say. Up with that Swansea kind of level. I just feel like they're just not a great team, and they managed to get a point against Everton. I mean, yes, it was away, but still.
Well, I think Palace are on the up, actually. They beat Chelsea. They had an awful start to the season, but since then they've really picked up performances and they're starting to now pick up results, and they actually should have beaten Everton on Saturday. It was only Julian Speroni's poor decision to kick the ball, or to not kick the ball long on the stroke of half-time that has cost them the 3 points, and they are now picking up results, and I can see them being okay at the end of the season now, even though there are still questions in my head over the capabilities of Roy Hodgson as a manager. I still think Crystal Palace will be okay. I think they've got players playing for the shirt. I don't think Swansea have. I don't think Everton have. And at the minute, I don't think Stoke and Southampton have. I think they could be in trouble.
Do you think that's what makes... that's what helps in a relegation battle? Having a team with desire kind of beats having, say, a better team with no real care over a team, which maybe you look at it and you think on paper that's not a great squad, but because they work hard and they play for the shirt, it actually gets them that extra point.
I think regardless of where you are in the league, I think you look at Leicester, when they won the league, they're not playing for the money, they're playing for the pride, they're playing for the badge on the front, not the name on the back. And I think especially when you get to 32 games in the season and you're in the bottom 5, that is when quality goes out the window.
So anyway, let's quickly go through the other games. We'll have a brief little run of these. Leicester, Man City. Typical Man City result, really, isn't it? Very good from Man City overall. But I thought Leicester performed pretty well. It took them a while to actually fully seal that game. I think it was De Bruyne in the end who put the nail in the coffin. But I don't think Leicester can be too downhearted with losing to City.
No, Leicester hit the post immediately at the start of the second half, and after that, Manchester City countered lethally, just straight down the other end and put the ball in the back of the net. I think if you only concede 2 goals to this Man City team, I think you're not doing too badly, to be honest, because they are absolutely flying.
Yeah, well, did they put 4 against Watford, or was it even more than 4?
5, I think.
I think it was 5, and that's a team right now who we've just been praising for doing very well. They've been going. Liverpool, Southampton, Mo Salah, Chelsea's biggest regret? Probably not. But
De Bruyne is by far and away Chelsea's biggest regret.
Yeah, probably not. But you know what? That's a lot of things that Liverpool fans have been saying, haven't they? But I don't know. Good player. I think he suits Liverpool a lot more than what he suits Chelsea. I think with the style of play, it's very similar to what he had when he was playing at Roma, which is always a good thing. Southampton, we've already said, poor, aren't they?
Very, very poor. Haven't shown anything attacking wise. Haven't scored in a long time, and real questions being asked at that club, and we'll see how that turns out. But I think Mo Salah's getting a lot of praise when he doesn't deserve the amount he's getting. The amount of chances I've seen him miss this season where he's got to score. When it comes to a big match, these are the chances that he's going to miss in a big match, and people are going to find him out for the actual level he's playing at. Yes, he's the top goal scorer. Yes, he's played well. Form is temporary, class is permanent. I think we'll wait and see which one he has.
Well, right now though, it's great for your fantasy teams, isn't it? Absolutely great for fantasy football. 2 games remaining in the Premier League. West Brom, Chelsea. Very good Chelsea performance. I mean, it is a poor West Brom side. It's obviously the time where Pulis got sacked, but Yeah, there's really not much more you can say. I think if you saw that result last season, you would have thought, yeah, that's typical Chelsea. But I guess there's a lot more emphasis on this because of how Chelsea have been recently.
Chelsea have flown under the radar, I think, a little bit this season, and there seems to be a perception that we haven't been that good. But I don't think that's true. I think there's just a lot of pressure on the club, as always, to succeed. But Manchester City are going to run away with the league. We're not going to win the league. We're not going to win the Champions League. We've just got to focus on the cups, try and win something, try and get as far as we can in the Champions League. And I don't think top 4. I think top 3 has to be. And we're only 1 point off Manchester United in second, so
yeah, and then 9 points off City in first.
Yeah, but City are going to run away with the league. We know that. At the minute, I'm more than content with how Chelsea are doing. I think there's nothing wrong with us at the minute.
And then last game, we left it to last. Man United, Newcastle. I mean, I really don't know what to think about this game. I thought it was an okay United result, but I don't think they were great.
One major difference between United and Newcastle, and that was Paul Pogba.
Yeah.
It pains me to say it, but
I think he played out of his skin. I thought Lukaku looked
mediocre.
Yeah, he didn't.
Very nearly missed his goal. Very nearly missed it by hitting it over the bar. But United have got quality players. Paul Pogba obviously is in there. They dropped Mkhitaryan for the game completely. He wasn't even in the squad, but I still think they'll finish top 4 on paper. 4-1, comfortable.
That's when you look at it and you think, yeah, this is a Man United team which didn't play great but managed to beat Newcastle 4-1.
But that's what Mourinho does.
Yeah.
And, people argue, it was all 1-0 last year. We've got to be better this year. There you go. 4-1 wasn't pretty, but 3-goal difference.
Yeah, at least got it. And it's nice to see Zlatan Ibrahimovic back
as
well. Yeah, well, it's nice for a Premier League neutral like myself. Anyway, that has been the English League Roundup. I love Serie A football. Sorry, I don't love Serie A football. It's not called that anymore. I love Calcio football. I'm showing my age already. Oh, I'm going to be saying that so many times.
Shut up.
Now. So many times. Let's talk about the big news, because obviously I know not a lot of people watch a lot of Italian football, which I completely understand. So they'll be surprised to probably know that Napoli are top of the league and Juventus aren't even second. So, Roger, have you been keeping up with a bit of Italian football and what's been happening?
For the purposes of the show, yes.
See, that's what I want to hear. Clued up.
A little bit. I'd say 50% yes, 50% no. But I knew obviously in the bet slip every week, Inter Milan get straight on there when they were playing, as long as they're not playing someone in the top 4, because they've been very, very consistent this year. As have Napoli. They haven't. Neither team have lost yet. Both unbeaten. So
yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So it just shows how much Juventus are having to try and keep up with them, because they've been so good. But a couple of interesting results. Inter Milan dropped points this weekend at home to Torino. So
it's absolutely mental. No, Inter Milan ended up winning. Roger, they beat
that was 2
Atlanta.
Weeks ago. Sorry,
2 weeks ago. See, this is the 50-50.
I told you I was a little bit clued up, but not majorly.
Well, let's talk about the big story though. Sampdoria 3, Juventus 2. I mean, it wasn't even the fact that Sampdoria, came from behind. I believe that Juventus scored 2 90th minute goals, which really flattered what this game was. Sampdoria, fair play to them. Just to say, Sampdoria are currently 6th, which, if you look at what the Calcio is in recent years, 6th is not meant to be a challenge for a 5-time Serie A champion in Juventus. But this year, it's all changing. Seriously, it's all absolutely going mental. I believe Udinese played very well against Juventus as well. I don't think they got the result. I think they got a draw in the end on that. But absolutely mental how some of these have been going. And you look at Napoli, and they beat AC Milan last week 2-1. Not last week, a couple of nights ago, 2-1. And it makes you think: is there finally a change? Are we finally going to get Napoli as Calcio champions?
At the minute, it's looking very promising. They're obviously top. They've got the best record, and some of their players obviously in their prime at the minute. Dries Mertens, 31 years old, I think he is. It's kind of last chance saloon for him to do anything. Marek Hamsik as well, getting on a bit now, but they've got quality players in the team, so it's really refreshing to see the Serie A with their different leaders and different people in the race, because it was one of those leagues like the Bundesliga where people just sat back and looked at it and thought, pointless league, Juventus are going to win it, and that's one of the reasons why I don't think it's got as much following as it probably should have. But yeah, it's great to see two different teams at the top that aren't Juventus.
I think the only time I can see it being a competitive league in recent memory was about 2 seasons ago when Napoli had Higuain. He scored about 36 goals. They were top of the league, and then Udinese came along, and I think they drew like 4-4 with Udinese, and that because Juventus was such a strong squad. What actually happened is that draw cost them a lot of momentum in the league, and eventually Juventus ended up coming from behind and winning that league. It was a very good season a couple of years ago. Obviously, then Juventus didn't want that to happen, so they bought Higuain then the next season. But it seems that now with Insigne, Mertens, and who's the
Callahan?
Yeah, Callahan. 3 wingers who now are one of the most fearsome 3 men in, I would say, world football. If you look at threes now, with Neymar going to PSG, I think you look at them 3 and you think they're just some dangerous players.
I think, obviously, excluding Spanish football, I think in terms of fearsome front threes, I think Juventus, Napoli, Chelsea, Man City.
Yeah.
I think past that, and PSG probably as well. I think they're the most deadly combinations in world football at the minute, but Napoli certainly do pose some threats, but I think the players are playing better than how they're perceived. I think Mertens is on a fire at the minute. Everything he's touching turns to gold, but I haven't seen that much of Callahan, but I know that he is actually producing the goods.
Callahan is one of those players, out of the 3, he's the one who is providing.
Yeah.
May not be the guy getting the assist, but he'll give it to the other 2, and he will manage to get them a goal. He plays it very well. It's really interesting how all 3 of these players, before really making the name in Napoli like they're doing now, were very similar players. They felt like players who had pace, weren't very technical, but had the good physicals to go towards that.
They felt like players that never had the end product.
Yes.
But I think that this year, and the last couple of years, to be fair, they've really sort of disproved that. But I think the frightening pace that they have, and ham-sticking behind as well, is really something to be worried about if you're a defender.
Yeah, they've all definitely managed to adapt, and you know what I love as well is that it doesn't just take a good attack. Chelsea tried to get Koulibaly in the January, in the January and in the summer probably, but Napoli didn't want to let go of him. They wanted to keep him because they wanted to basically do what they're doing now and try and win Calcio, which I think shows good, because at the end of the day, there are probably about 2 seasons ago, like what Napoli did with Higuain, they probably would have let someone like Koulibaly go.
Well, I think if someone comes in with £90 million for your striker, you take that. But obviously Chelsea didn't quite put in the right amount that Napoli would have parted. I think they wanted 60 million.
Yeah, they wanted a lot, which kind of shows you how valuable he is to that squad.
But I think in this day and age, that's probably a fair price for Koulibaly, but Chelsea obviously weren't prepared to pay that. So in the end, they've signed Rudiger for half the price, and this isn't a dig, but probably half the ability.
Yeah, half the price, half the player. That's what it feels like. I mean, I don't know if he'd be wondering, maybe if I'd stayed at Roma for a little bit longer, would I have developed more of a player? Or it might. I think it was one of those risks which just.
I don't think he was ever going to stay at Roma, given the the abuse that he was given by the league. So I think he was always going to move country, but. I'm kind of glad that he came to Chelsea, but I don't think he's a starting player for us. I'd rather play Christensen.
So let's go into the Roma games when we're speaking about Roma. Roma, Lazio, 2 teams which, again, if you don't know a lot about Calcio football or Italian football in general, the 2 teams which are starting to again become, go on the rise a little bit and starting to challenge for a Champions League spot, which now I can actually say, I don't think many people know this, but because of the way the system has changed with the Champions League, Italy now get 4 Champions League spots in the group stage.
I didn't know that. I thought it was still 3. I thought it was still...
The top 5 leagues, or the top 4 leagues, I believe. No, I think it's the top 5 get 4 Champions League spots guaranteed in the group stage.
Okay.
So Italy finally are on 4, which I think rightfully so.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, but... Obviously, it's Roma Lazio. That's one of the major derbies, isn't it? In Italian football.
Roma ended up winning 2-1 in that game, which honestly surprised me a little bit. It gave Roma the advantage over Lazio. Roma now in 4th, Lazio in 5th. But I would have thought Immobile would have done a lot more. He's been on fire, absolutely on fire. He's been one of the hidden gems in the Serie A.
I just don't think Lazio have the quad. I think if you look at the squads, Roma's squad is better than Lazio, and I think that reflected in the scoreline, obviously. So I think Roma deserve to win. I haven't seen the match, but I'm just on paper, on the squads, I think they deserve to win.
Do you know who scored for Roma? And
I know Perotti scored a penalty, and 4 minutes later, Nainggolan scored.
Okay, and then Lazio probably then.
And then Immobile pulled one back from his penalty spot as well.
I mean, I could have guessed on which Lazio player scored because I think Immobile, he might be top goal scorer in the Calcio A. I believe that's the start. I know he put a hat trick against Juventus, which is absolutely unbelievable. Are you gonna go on your stats and check that one up, Roger?
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, it is Ciro Immobile, and after that, Icardi and Dybala, and then Mertens.
See, Icardi is another one where we haven't really talked about Inter Milan. 2-0 against Atalanta, a team which you'd expect them to be beaten. Second in Calcio A. Again, if it wasn't for Napoli, you would have to say that Inter Milan have also had a great season so far as well.
10 wins, 3 draws, so can't really argue with that. 25 goals scored, 9 conceded, so they're playing pretty well. They managed to just about avoid defeat in the... Or no, they won the Milan derby, didn't they, in the last minute?
Yes, I believe so.
So that's obviously a massive result for Inter, but they're playing
I also
well.
believe they drew against Juventus as well earlier on in the season, which is whenever you can get a point against Juventus, no matter where they are in the table, is always a great result as well.
Yeah, well, they don't really have. Interestingly, I saw, just going back to the Napoli and Juventus, in 2 weeks' time they play each other. So that'll be an interesting one. But Inter, they've faced most of the top sides, I think, already, and they're still unbeaten. So
yeah, so now they're just picking the scraps with Atlanta. I mean, no offense to Atlanta and a few other teams, but the Serie A is still gapped. But you could arguably say that in comparison with the Premier League. I mean, you look at, say, the top 6, the stereotypical top 6, and while I don't think the Calcio has that, there is a gap between the top sides and the bottom sides. Speaking of one of the bottom sides, honestly, I want to talk about a little team called Benevento. I mean, I adore this team. They somehow made it to the Serie A, to the Calcio A. Apologies if we keep saying Serie A, to the Italian
We'll get
league.
this eventually.
We'll eventually get there. It's a recent change. They eventually made it to the Calcio A after, I believe, they made it to the playoffs, and they got through on the playoffs. And so far, 13 games, no wins, no draws, 13 losses, 0 points. They had a chance against Sassuolo. They were 1-1. Then Sassuolo missed a penalty, and then 2 minutes later, Sassuolo scored to make it 2-1 to Sassuolo. Is this team ever going to get a point? It's not someone you'd put on your bet slip, isn't it?
They will get a point. They're not going to go 38 games and 38 losses, but you wouldn't like to predict where that's going to come. I'll put it that way. It's they knew it was going to be a tough season before they came into it. They're just there for the ride and there to have fun, so I can't really argue with them. So
they're a team which is very, very happy to be taking the participation award in this league, to be fair. But you know what? I can see, this is honestly my mind thinking that I could see Benevento having probably about 3 points, and those 3 points going to like AC Milan, Inter Milan and like Juventus, all 3 draws. Like a team like Benevento, despite being probably going to be bottom of the league relegated in Feb, could actually decide a title challenge, which I think would be... It'd be nice. It'd be nice for them to at least say that we caused something,
Yeah, did something of note.
So anyway, that's it with the Italian football. I'm just going to quickly run through the league for a second. I'm only going to go for the top 10. So it's going to be Napoli first on 35 points, then Inter Milan second, Juventus third, Roma fourth. Then Lazio and Sampdoria 5th and 6th. AC Milan 7th. That might be a surprise to quite a lot of people. Torino 8th. Fiorentina 9th. And Chievo Verona 10th. Any ones which you're a bit shocked at, though, that top 10?
Yeah, I'm shocked at, obviously, Sampdoria. But my favourite Italian team has always been Fiorentina. And they're normally they're normally in and around 6th to 8th. They're never normally down in that 10th, 9th spot. So I'm a little bit shocked to see them down there, and I'm also a little bit shocked to see Chievo in 10th.
Yeah, and then if I actually scroll down as well, I actually look at Sassuolo in 16th. So a team which was, I believe, in the Europa League a couple of years ago, in the Calcio A, then the Serie A, so we could actually say it then, is now struggling and 2 points off the relegation zone, with Genoa also in the relegation zone.
Yeah, that's a surprising one. I thought Genoa would be doing a lot better, but I think they haven't really signed that many players recently. I wonder if there's something going on behind the scenes there that obviously I'm not completely up to scratch with.
The money situation in the Calcio has never been the greatest anyway, with funding and everything. It's not like the Premier League. That's why you see a lot of players go for a lot of players when they get bought in. You kind of look at it and think, how have they bought, for example, Matuidi for 25 million? You know, when in a Premier League side, if they were interested, you'd probably pay more 40 million for him. It's because that money's not available there. So I think that's why it's a little bit easier. But anyway, that has been our Italian football section. We're going to be going for a break. We're going to be talking about some Spanish football next. Let's talk about some Spanish football. I mean, let's start with, what it is really. Is it very, very similar to what every single season's going to be? I mean, there's a couple changes, but it seems very, very similar to what it's going to be, the exact same as the season before and then the season after.
Well, there's always the usual three suspects, isn't there, in the Spanish league? Barcelona's still unbeaten, but and Atletico Madrid's still unbeaten as well. But Real Madrid's lost 2 in this season, level on points with Atletico Madrid though still. So it will at the end of the season, it will be those three in the top 3 positions, I think, and it's just a nothing league at the minute. That's why no one likes watching it. There's so many diving players, and the only real interesting thing is it going to go to Barcelona or Real Madrid? That's the only interesting thing I see in the Spanish league.
I mean, the only hope is that we have to say it right now, because third play to this team, Valencia in second. I think Valencia won the La Liga. I think in the 2000, was it? Was it with Rafa?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest.
I think it was. I think he ended up winning it with Valencia. I believe it was the year 2000. I could be wrong. Roger's probably going to get it up on his laptop now to see if he can get that right. But I do think that they're a decent chance of getting in. The 4 points clear. They're second place. They're 6 points off Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, which I think is absolutely crazy. And they've took that Seville role now, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been really good this season. They're also still unbeaten as well, which is incredible to think, really. They've won 9 and drawn 3, so they're only 4 points off Barcelona, who've only not won 1 game. So they've played really, really well this season, but it'll be interesting to see how they play when they come up against the big boys.
Let's go into about Seville. Obviously, or Sevilla. It's a bit of a weird one with them now after the Europa League. After the Europa League dominance, you could say they have had. Now it's kind of petered off a little bit, hasn't it? They've not really been a talked about side anymore, and they've not really shown any merit to be a talked about side. They beat Celta Vigo 2-1, which is a very, very decent result. But top 5, is Europa League just where they should be?
Yeah, they've found a home in the Europa League in the last kind of 5 years. They've won it so many times, and I think they've really got to stick to what they're good at and just stay in that zone until they're ready to make the step up. I think they could have been ready this season, but they haven't quite made the right signings. There's just something's not quite right at Sevilla yet, and I think give it a couple of years and they could start pushing the other teams. I
think having Unai Emery leave for PSG definitely hurt them as well. I think he was a guy who was building a project really at Sevilla, and now it's kind of stopped. Like you said, I think there's kind of a consistent period where they're going to get Europa League, and at the end of the day, maybe if you're a Sevilla fan, you're happy with them getting Europa League over the Champions League because it's a better competition, which they could probably think they can win. To be fair, I feel like if I had a choice of probably Champions League and getting 4th, or Europa League and then possibly winning it and being one of the favourites, I think I'd probably go for a Europa League spot more than anything. Especially if I knew that really I'm not the greatest threat in the Champions League. However, I don't think any football fan should be thinking like that. But after the dominance they've had in that league, in that competition, I can see why they want to make it their own, to be fair.
I think we still have to remember that they are only 2 points off Real Madrid in 3rd spot, so it's not like the season's been calamitous. And if they put a run of results together, they still could actually qualify in 3rd position for the Champions League.
But I think one thing which puts them out more than anything is you look at the goal difference, and Sevilla have got 2 goal difference compared to Atletico Madrid in 10, Real Madrid in 13, Valencia in 21, and Barcelona in 29. So it shows really that if they are winning games, they're not winning it convincingly, or they're not winning it by scoring enough goals.
But I think only time can tell with Sevilla if they start dropping off, or if they really start making a push, or if they keep winning scrappy games. then they're still going to be up there by the end of the year if they keep picking up points. So we'll just wait and see how they actually do, and if they sign anyone in January, or if they increase the size of the squad, because I think they are probably a little bit thin on the ground in terms of numbers.
And let's quickly talk about the Madrid derby. It's a little known thing, the Madrid derby. Nobody really knows about it. I mean, is it the most exciting Madrid derby we've seen? I mean, let's be honest, it's probably one of the worst in recent memory I can remember, because it didn't feel like anything was on the line. The only thing which really felt good about it was the fact that Atletico Madrid got 6 yellows.
Yeah, obviously it's a feisty game. That's one of the reasons everyone loves a derby. Everyone loves to see a yellow flying about in a derby, but it's just a boring game, just a nothing game. No one really cared.
Yeah, it really didn't feel like anybody was bothered about it, which is, and I watched the game, but it just didn't feel like there was any passion, which, to be fair, shows me everything. And I'm not saying the players aren't passionate about it, but I just felt like they could have added a little bit more to it. Possibly Atletico Madrid gave it their all, but I don't think Real Madrid did.
I think it was one of those ones where neither team just wanted to lose. Both teams were happy to settle for a draw, and neither team wanted to really commit, and just in case they ended up on the losing side.
Yeah, and really, with the Spanish league, that's all there is really to talk about. I mean, a bit of a shout out to Leganés in 9th. I think that's very, very interesting them to be up there. And Malaga in 18th, which is very worrying as well, Roger.
Atletico Bilbao as well in 15th. They normally expect a lot better in terms of seasons from them.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at Espanyol and Celta Vigo. Like, it really, between 7th and 17th, it shakes up quite a lot, I would say. I think you generally know who's going to get relegated, which is generally the 3 promoted sides. But to be fair, right now it's not. I think Girona went up and they're 11th, and I think Leganés went up and they're 9th. So that's pretty interesting. So at least, while it's not as exciting up in the top, it might be a little bit exciting more in the bottom. But anyway, we're going on to our last 2 leagues after this break. We're going to be talking about the French League and the Bundesliga. It's a football-heavy episode. We're going round the leagues, and we've got our final 2 leagues as we are about to close down. And it is the Bundesliga first. So, Roger, Bundesliga, Bayern Munich. It's the same old story, isn't it?
It is the same old story, but I still think this league's interesting. And this is my favourite league behind the Premier League. I think this is the league that I like watching the most, because the teams behind Bayern Munich, they just mix up every week, and you don't know who's going to beat who, and it's so open in behind Bayern Munich. And you look at it, and Schalke are in 2nd, which I think is the major talking point from the Bundesliga up so far. Dortmund down in 5th position, but it's so tight. There's only 3 points between Schalke and Dortmund, and then behind Dortmund, there's only 10 points between Dortmund and Hamburg in 15th place, just 1 point above the relegation spot. So it's really interesting to see who's going to win which week, and who's going to eventually qualify for continental football.
Yeah, I think the 2 major talking points, which we'll probably speak about, it's not Bayern Munich. I mean, we all know that Bayern Munich are always going to win 3-0 against Salzburg. I don't think there's anything really we can talk about that for. But it is dealt with the Schalke rise and the Dortmund fall, really. We'll start with the good news with the Schalke rise. 2-0 against Hamburg. I mean, this was a team which last season was struggling, like seriously struggling. And then they lost the likes of Kolasinac, and Embolo has come back. That's actually been a big thing. But they've managed to push on and play a pragmatic style of football, which has managed to get them points, and it works in the Bundesliga. It may not be the prettiest football, but they're getting chances. I believe Jonathan Dos Santos scored a penalty, which might have been the first time in 2 years I think that has ever happened. So
it was Franco Di Santo.
Oh, was it Franco Di Santo?
Yeah.
It's one of those, isn't it? I mean, he's a player which I know a mate who's a Schalke fan, and he just couldn't believe it when he knew the score of who scored the penalty. But It's been a little bit of a nice story. I mean, you would have expected the likes of Dortmund, Leipzig, and maybe like Hoffenheim, just because of how rich Hoffenheim are. But really, it is Schalke who are stealing the headlines with just getting pragmatic results.
Yeah, Schalke, they've had a great season, I think, Schalke, but they're never going to catch Bayern. But I think it'll be interesting to see if they stay on. They're obviously got in a good place in terms of momentum at the minute, but they really need to keep it up. Otherwise, the teams in behind them, the Dortmunds, the Leipzigs, they will catch them. I think. But I think the most interesting thing this week is Werder Bremen won 4-0 against Hanover. Max Kruse with a hat-trick. I think Max Kruse has been incredibly underrated, and it can only be a matter of time before he moves to a bigger team.
I mean, especially with Werder Bremen currently in 16th.
Yeah, exactly.
It's they're very difficult.
They're level on points as well with 17th. At the minute, they're in a very, very big relegation battle, and that was actually their first win of the season. So Max Kruse drawing them over the line. But yeah, they've only got -6 goal difference, which compared to the teams around them is nowhere near. So they've obviously been scoring goals. They just haven't managed to get the wins so far this season. But
I think out of the sides which are contesting relegation, which looks like right now, obviously this all can change. Hamburg, Werder Bremen, Freiburg, and Cologne. Definitely, it looks like Werder Bremen are the stronger of the four, despite being in that relegation playoff spot. Because I believe that 16th is a playoff. I think 17th, 18th go down, and then 16th is playoff. So they might not even get relegated if they do finish 16th. But I do feel like Max Kruse is a player who I could definitely see it like a Watford or a Stoke or a Southampton.
Yeah, I can see him in a big club in the Premier League or in Spain or just anywhere really. He's got the ability to score goals, and he's a natural goal scorer. So I think it's only a matter of time before he goes somewhere. But the big one that has really shocked me in the Bundesliga is Köln in bottom position in the league with 2 points yet to pick up a victory. What has happened? What has happened at Köln?
They're a team which was I believe a very stable club at one point, and then just in the recent years they've just been financially hit. And this was the team which Podolski came out of, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And this was not a Podolski which was a joke at the time. This was a world class footballer, really. I would not world class, but a very top caliber footballer in Podolski, along with a lot of other. I believe was it Timo Horn? I believe he's still at Cologne as well.
Anthony Modeste was on absolute fire last season, and Cologne, I think they finished in. They were at one stage, I think, second, and they dropped off a little bit and finished top half. But to see them in the position they're in is shocking, to be honest.
I believe Modeste, he's gone to China now, didn't he? He left for China at the end of the season. So
they just haven't replaced the goals, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see how they fix that in January. But they've got to do something.
See, now you're talking about the biggest shot being Cologne. I think the biggest shot is what happened 3 days ago, I believe. Stuttgart 2, Dortmund 1. Now, Stuttgart, if you don't know, a team in 11th, and obviously Dortmund, but what a shambolic result that is, I would have to say, because if they had won that game, they would have been on 23 points, which would have put them second on goal difference. But because they have lost that game, they're down to 5th. And it shows really now, because of the quality of what there is around Dortmund. I don't think... I think Bayern Munich are just the team, but I think other teams around Dortmund's level are getting better.
Yeah, they're starting to pick up. Leipzig obviously finishing second last season. Schalke at the minute second, and
Mönchengladbach as well.
Mönchengladbach as well. Hoffenheim level on points with Dortmund. There are teams that are starting to push through the barriers in the Bundesliga, and it's going to be a really exciting league to watch in the coming years, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to go into our final league of this massive league rundown into football. It's been a journey, Roger, hasn't it? We're going into, I would arguably say, I wouldn't say the most boring, but the most predictable league out of everything. Maybe the Bundesliga, but we put these both in together because we thought they were very similar leagues. We're going to go Liga Ern. It's PSG top with 35 points. Who would have thought it? Over possible 39 points, 35 have gone in Paris Saint-Germain's way. It's because of that man Neymar, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, well, they're always going to walk the league with the money they have and the players they have. I think that this league is almost irrelevant. It's Monaco in second, Lyon in third, Marseille in fourth. You couldn't have predicted it any better, I don't think. But
I believe that it was one of those where last season there was a bit of hope with Monaco doing so well. I think there was a little bit of hope, thinking, okay, maybe it's not just PSG. And then what PSG did is a little bit like what Juventus did with Napoli, is they basically thought, we're just going to strengthen so much that it's going to obliterate any form which other teams have, and they've done it. Like PSG are a side which I believe could go into a Premier League team, could go into the BBVA or the Liga Santander, and can go into the Serie A and seriously compete with those teams. Like I really would not see a world where if PSG weren't in the Premier League, they could win the Premier League. Because I think they could. I think they're that good of a squad, but what that does is that lowers the level of Monaco, Lyon and Marseille.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think PSG could probably compete in any league in the world, and I think they'll probably make a good job of it. But I think with the hope that there was last year as well with Nice. Nice had a lot of hope last year as well, because they were really challenging. They were first at one point, but this year
Balotelli was absolutely smashing it in for them along with a lot of other people.
But just the two more shocks around the world, or around the major European leagues that have surprised me. Nice this year down in 16th spot, just 2 points clear of the relegation zone. And interestingly, in the relegation zone, Lille.
Yeah,
I can't imagine Lille being in the relegation zone. The club that has produced so many world class players over the year.
I mean, the positive news is that in the last 3 days, Lille managed to beat Saint Etienne, who are currently 7th. So they've done good, and they're actually hopefully going to climb out of there. You look at a team like Strasbourg and Angers, and you think probably they're the two teams which you'd expect to go down. I look at a team like Seyan though in 6th, and I think that is a wonderful, wonderful story. I believe Seyan might have been the club which Kante came from. In the Domino Liga 2 at the time. So they've obviously used that money well, managed to get promoted, and now are 6th in the league, which I think is a great achievement for them.
Yeah, I did not expect them to be anywhere near that position. And also Nantes in 5th, of the Ranieri effect again taking place with another strong run.
It's crazy thinking. I mean, it would never happen. But if Ranieri gets Nantes to a Liga 1 title. He'd probably have to go down as one of the greatest managers, wouldn't he, if he did it with Leicester and Nantes? Surely.
Yeah, that's got to be one of the greatest achievements by any manager ever, but I can't see it.
I really can't. I think it's one step too far for Ranieri. Did you know that Ranieri had to talk to the French FA because he was so old? Because he was an old manager. They don't like allowing old managers into the FA because every manager has to be vetted by the FA of the Football Association of each nation. In England, generally, that they just let it go, but in France, they don't like old managers.
I did not know that.
They like managers who are kind of like younger, but because Ranieri, I think he's like 63 or something like that. I think he's really old. He had to actually get clearance so they would allow him to join because they don't want him to basically do one season and leave, which I thought was very, very interesting. A little stat there for everybody there. But anyway, I think that is going to be the end of this show. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I know it was a football-heavy episode. We've already got plans of talking about, I think it's F1, maybe some NFL, I think, next episode as well. I think we'll be doing stuff like that.
Just something to mix it up, something to keep it interesting, because I'll be honest, that it's not great talking about one sport for an hour.
I mean, we do love it, but it was definitely a journey.